Hello and welcome to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and this week we are looking back at a fantastic away win at Elland Road, inflicting the first league defeat on Leeds United this season with a brilliant 1-0 victory and a return to the Burnley of old. My panellists this week are regular analysts Tom Whitaker and Rich Steele, and we are going to be looking over what we know a very defensive display. So listeners, buckle up, here we go. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Natalie. How are we? All right?
We are very, very good, thank you. We are analysing an unexpected victory, I'm not going to lie. Rich, how are you?
Yeah, good evening, Natalie. Good evening, Tom. Good evening, everybody. I'm amazed George isn't analysing this game after we were so deeply invested in the Clarets' away win in Leeds. But we'll leave that one, shall we, for now?
Little George is a little wonder kid. He disappears when times are not going so well, and then he just rants, and then he pipes up when it's all very happy, and he comes on like a little chipmunk. Bless him. He has been on for a little bit recently, so we won't give him too much stick. Okay, so this was not the what result that I was expecting to commentate on this evening. I mean, I guess that's not being unduly negative here, but we knew that a trip to Elland Road was going to be a really, really tough game. They are expecting to lift the title this season. A lot of our previews were talking about this incredible front four that they've got, how they were going to absolutely annihilate us in front of goal. But I don't think that they particularly counted on a brilliant Burnley defence. I think we'll start off with the first half, Tom, and you were there on Saturday as well. The first half was a real battle, and it was one of those championship games that I could watch every single minute of every single day for the rest of my life. Very physical, very two sides very much trying to win the game, outmaneuver each other. I think it's probably fair to say that Leeds had the better of the first sort of 10 minutes ago, and there was that shocking mistake. Miss that Joseph had in the early 5 minutes of the games. It could have completely changed the dynamic of the game. But Burnley were dynamic and proactive and gave as good as they got, I thought, in that first half.
Yeah, I think if you look at the possession stats, and it was the same throughout the game, Leeds had a lot of the ball, but I think in the first half, the kind of stats relating to shots and things like that were pretty similar. It was obviously the plan for us to let Leeds have the ball, kind of a reverse of what we had in the derby the week before. We were happy just to sit in and let the other side have the ball and say, if you can break us down, come and do it. And particularly in the second half, which we'll come on to, they didn't. But the first half, as you say, it was quite end to end. I think it's gone under the radar a little bit that we had some really good chances, not just the goal we scored. There was a free header for Worrell for a corner where he should have done better. If he'd have kept it down, he scores really from where he was. And there was a lovely kind of passing move that ended with Anthony getting a shot off around the penalty spot that was blocked. Fleming had a good chance as well, and I think he got himself in front of the defender. I think if that's Foster, he's quick enough to get away. Fleming's perhaps a bit slow, but there was also hands on him, and I think if he'd have gone down, he might have had a claim for a red card there. So we certainly had our moments in the first half, obviously, apart from the goal. Leeds definitely should have had a couple of goals, potentially could have had a penalty as well. I don't think it would have been a massively controversial decision to give them the penalty. But as you said in your intro, I wasn't really expecting too much. I think it's just very early days for us. We've had a squad kind of thrown together at the last minute, it feels like, in some ways. And it's probably about as tough a games we'll get all season. Leeds away at Elland Road, as you say, they're title favourites and title favourites for a reason. So to go there, to put in a really good, solid defensive performance, restrict the oppositions, particularly in the second half, and come away with 3 points, it's certainly better than I was expecting. I would have been really happy with the point there. So it sets us up really nicely for what looks like on paper a slightly kind of run of fixtures coming up in the next month or two.
Yeah, Rich, there's two really good points there that Tom raises that I think people aren't focusing on enough. And I know certainly on the shows that I've appeared, and I've tried to really reinforce this point. First and foremost, it is, so far this season, we've played Luton, we've played Sunderland, we've played Blackburn, we've played Leeds. We've played Obviously Cardiff aren't doing very well, but and Blackburn we weren't expecting to do as well as they have. But we've had really tough fixtures for the first 5 games. But we have to analyse this as to exactly where we are in terms of our development. I think now we write off the first 2 games of the season, the 4-1 against Luton and the 5-0 against Cardiff. It was a different squad. It was a squad of players who aren't here anymore. And it was almost a false start to the season. And we got ourselves those 6 points on the board. But, that style of football and that squad isn't here anymore. The Sunderland game was just a complete anomaly, and that half the squad were taken out because we didn't know who was going, who was staying. And we had that really weak bench with the 2 keepers and the development players on it. Blackburn and Leeds were basically Parker's first 2 games with this squad. The Blackburn game, most of the squad met either the day before the game or the morning of the game. We then had a 2-week international break, and this was really their first chance playing together after a prolonged period of development. So, in the context of this being just game 2 of our campaign, where do you think we are now in terms of how's that start been? Where do you think we are in terms of what's working? How well is this performance? Should be judged against that, and where's still not quite right for you?
Well, there's a lot to try and dilute. I think it's very.
And I know you can handle it.
I think it's hard to kind of give a fair assessment of where this team and where this squad is at the moment. I think one thing that's perfectly evident is that the team and the squad's behind Parker. I think you're seeing that, from the celebrations after the final whistle on Saturday with the cheering. Parker seems like quite an unassuming guy to me, but the players were kind of pushing him forward to join in the celebrations, which I think is really nice. One thing that's very evident is how much better we look defensively. We look much more compact. We look much more solid. One thing that's really evident is that he's signed players who have got a little bit more physicality, a little bit more nous. I don't feel like every time a cross is going to come into our box or we concede a set piece that we're just going to score. That we're just going to concede from it. And we do look a real threat on the counter attack. Like Tom said in the first half, every time we kind of like won the ball back and got in Leeds' half, we looked like we could pose real questions. It's still very, very, very early days. But I'm really pleased with where we are. I think as a person, Parker has handled himself tremendously well. I think he comes across really well.
I like him.
I think he comes very, very humble. I think you look at Bournemouth and Fulham, his 2 previous clubs. Maybe those clubs are very different to what Burnley is. I think Burnley, as we all know, is that hard-working, got a lot of humility about the club. And I think Parker is that type of person, and I think it seems a good fit to me, to be honest with you. There's stuff that we need to work on, and I think the more players, the more this squad plays together, I think we'll get better and better. There's still time, second half especially, where we did give possession away too easily. But I'm hoping.
I'm worried about that.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it yet, because you watch a lot of top teams and ultimately, when you're under pressure, your legs get a little bit more tired, you get a little bit more fatigued.
It's more the passing for me, Rich, and this is where I defer to your much more superior technical knowledge than mine. It just feels like, even in the first half, and it was like this against Blackburn, it just feels like passes are constantly being misplaced. It just feels. I don't agree that
passes have been constantly misplaced. Not constantly.
More like than we used to, for sure.
Yeah, possibly, but but how many passes? It depends what type of pass you're looking for. I'm not being funny. There were too many boring side-to-side passes under Company at times, and your passing success rate, if you're bothered about stats, is going to be higher. Where to me, under Parker, we look like we're willing to play balls into the channel a little bit more. We're willing to play through the centre a little bit more. So you are going to give possession away. Yes, there's times where we are giving the ball away too cheaply, but it is a different regime ultimately than what we've had under Company. I don't think on the whole we've maybe got players who are technically quite as good in certain positions. You're seeing at times Worrell give some, he's played the ball upfield and he give it away. But what you get with Worrell is you get a proper leader. So ultimately in the Championship, you're not going to get defenders who are able to be solid at the back and be able to play the ball out amazingly. You know, this is why they're playing Championship football. So sometimes you've got to, you know, take one and lose one, if that makes sense.
You're trading off.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. You know, you're not going to get Ruben Diaz's who's got it all in the Championship, and at times it is frustrating. I am worried. The one player I'm worried about is Perez. I can't, you know, I've said in our group chat, his first touch is dreadful, and that worries me for a professional footballer. Like Esteve there was one time where Esteve just played a simple ball to him on the left wing and it bounced out into the dugout. And he just worries me a little bit, if I'm being honest, and he dives in a little bit defensively. The right back position worries me a little bit. I think Roberts is a decent Championship fullback, but then if he gets injured, Navartino's not bringing in there. But again, we're looking forward to the future. But what I'm just glad with, and what I was worried about, this team looks like it's got some heart back and it's got some fight to it.
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ, we did, you know, it wasn't pretty at times, especially in the second half, but we battled really hard. And after that, I think Trafford made that one-on-one save from Nonto. And then after that, Leeds were restricted to long-range efforts. I watched the highlights, and in the second half, despite all the possession, Leeds didn't really create a lot. And I thought we defended magnificently. So I'm really proud of the team, of what's happened over the summer and where they are now. And I'd swap a couple of, you know, I'd swap a more technical player in Amdouni, you know, for maybe a Josh Laurent who isn't as good, but he's going to give absolutely 110% every game. And going back to your initial point about giving the ball away, I think once Cullen gets back into that midfield and has a run, we'll see it. So once Cullen came on Saturday, everything looked to calm down a little bit. So it'll be a big plus for us. For me, I know I've talked a while earlier, but this will be my last point. For me, Cullen is the first name in that central midfield on the team sheet. And then it's up to Parker, maybe game on game dependent, what partnerships in midfield he then decides to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I very much agree with that. And I'd forgotten, actually, Cullen wasn't around for the East Lancs derby either, and I think we missed him in that as well. So, yeah, you're right. Perhaps that's, you know, our first two games with this new squad, under this new regime, have both been without Cullen. So it's probably, that's not helped the situation. Tom, Rich talked there about things that weren't pretty in the second half, which we'll come on to in a minute. One thing that was very pretty in the first half was a 70-yard sprint by Luka Koleosho, displacing the Leeds. Was it Roman? Who was it who displaced? I can't remember who slipped. Was it? I can't remember who.
It was
Solomon. It was Solomon, wasn't it? Basically said, "Thanks very much. You sit down. I'm off," and nobody went anywhere near him. And to see a player run at that speed with no defenders getting in, and then finishing as well, having the composure to make the keeper and put it in the bottom net, you must have gone absolutely crazy. Was it as incredible live as it looked to us watching it all on the footage?
Yeah, great feeling, because when you're watching it live, you know, when you're watching it on telly, you've got the big angle, but when you're watching it live, you're just kind of following the ball a bit more. So it was like he's gone over the halfway line, and then suddenly you look this side and think, oh, there's only Anthony's up there. There's only one defender. We've got a good chance here. And like you say, just carried it. The defender was in two minds, I think, whether to stay with the man on the far side or come across. In the end, he did neither. And I think the thing with Koleosho last season was he just missed the end product, didn't he? He was really good on the ball. He was really quick, as you say, takes his man on well, but we didn't get a lot from him in terms of goals and assists last season. I think we got a bit more out of it in that respect. So to see him start adding goals to his game is fantastic. As I say, really good finish. Just use the defender just to disguise where he was putting it, slotted it into the corner, and then come running over to the travelling fans. There's a brilliant atmosphere in there. We sold out the allocation and it was absolutely rocking. So yeah, brilliant to see. I think Koleosho is going to be a really big player for us this season. I'm really glad we kept hold of him. I could understand Leeds not a bit, especially for the money that Tottenham paid, but I would have been really disappointed if we'd lost Odobert and Koleosho. But I think now he's tied down to this new deal as well. I think he's going to be a bit of an X factor this season, and you can't really think of many players we've had in the last 5-10 years that would have been able to pick the ball up inside the opposition's half, bring it 70 yards and finish like that. Because we just haven't had that much pace, have we, in the last few years? So
I don't think Eric Peters would have done that from there. I don't think Eric Peters would have done that. Would he collecting it from his own half? It'd have been in the channel. It'd have been in the corner.
I don't think Eric Peters picks up the ball full stop. Never mind. He runs with it. He falls it.
Well, like Tom saying there about Koleos was spot on. Like, and you've got to think like the lad's been out with a ruptured ACL. You know, so he's just going to get better and better and better. You know, I hope he just. I seen I think it's John Robertson, his name, who does the Mile for Lyle. I don't know him, but he seems a really, really good guy.
Yeah, he's a never VIP. There
we go. And he mentioned about maybe resting Koleosho on Saturday, but I don't agree with that. I'm kind of like this lad just needs to play now, week in, week out. Get his match fitness back. You know, get that, because he's still not maybe quite there in taking his fullback on one-on-one yet. Where like last season, like if he went one-on-one with Premier League fullbacks, they couldn't get him, and I still think he's getting that sharpness back. But for me, Koleosho is going to be a massive threat, like Tom said, and just keep playing him now week in, week out, and build his fitness back. So
as we saw with Benson, with the Derby, Rich, if you're going to start dipping players in and out and then not playing them, and then they're not 100% match fit, that's when they get injured. That's when they get the knocks. And, you know, we don't know, you know, we might not get a full season out of him if he's just start getting targeted by big, massive lumps of Championship defenders who go in with 2 foot. You know, fingers crossed we keep him fit all season. But, I mean, there is a question mark there, Rich. What do we do if he does have a spell where he's out injured? We don't have a natural replacement for him.
Well, yeah, that's part of football. I think we've signed Sarmiento, haven't we?
I like him. He's so.
I know you like him, Natalie. You like him very much.
He's so dreamy. But obviously for his feet. Obviously.
Yeah. This is a football podcast. No, but he looks a talented lad, doesn't he? And I put into the group actually about mentioning him, but I suppose it kind of brings us into a possible winger. And obviously that's Magic Mike Trezor, and he's back in training. So what's going to happen with him?
I don't really know what to make of all of that. That's one for another day. Let's not worry about Mike Trezor right now. It was a one. Okay, I guess the other main thing to discuss in that first half, Tom, was that penalty appeal. Joe Worrell brought down Solomon. Solomon had an active game. He's been most of the things that we're talking about here. The press are hailing it actually as an outstanding refereeing decision, and that Solomon got all of the ball and it was never a penalty, and it's an excellent decision. I've seen it now on quite a few different angles, and I don't think I'd say as confidently that he got the whole of the ball. I could see that given. I think whilst we don't like to dwell on VAR in past seasons, I think in the Premier League with VAR, that does have the ability to get overturned in a penalty given. We've seen worse, but do you give it any credit for a penalty appeal there, or do you think the right decision was made, Tom?
I'm not sure it would have been overturned necessarily. I think it's a bit of perhaps a 70-30 in Leeds' favour, maybe you'd say. I think I've seen loads of their fans saying it was a Stonewall penalty, which I don't agree with. No, but also I don't think there's no penalty there whatsoever. I think the trouble is, I think he does get a good bit of the ball when he comes in. The trouble is, it's the way he's tackling. He's coming in from behind. He's coming in. He's having to go kind of through the man almost to get to the ball. I think he does catch him. I don't think he takes him out or anything, and he certainly gets a lot of the ball and knocks it away. And from the referee's angle, and I think from the angle we had in the away end, you see really the ball being knocked away, and I think that's why it's not given. But I think when the man's between the ball like that, you shouldn't really be going to ground, and I think he's quite lucky to get away with it. I think if Solomon had been a little bit cuter there and just moved his leg across, he would have got all the man and none of the ball, and it would have been an Elland penalty. And I think we have got away with one there, although having said, I don't think it's as blatant as some have said, and I don't think it would have been overturned if there was VAR. But the lesson is there really not to dive in when you're that side, especially with the way Leeds are finishing. We might as well just let them have a shot on goal the way they're missing those chances in the first half.
I like it. Let's throw a bit of shade there. But it goes back to the point you were saying earlier on, doesn't it, Rich? That we've now got players who are committed and they want to play. Like some of our previous, particularly last season, they don't even met that challenge in the first place. So if they do, they don't fully commit to it and they do concede the penalty. I think for me, it was Worrell having that mindset to make that tackle and make it as cleanly as he possibly could, and to just try and stop that attack. It just shows that spirit that you were talking about before, about their determination to defend.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, you can interpret it one way or the other, can you? You can interpret it as reckless or committed. For what it's worth, I actually thought it was a penalty. You can't tackle from behind anymore, and I thought he went for a bit of the man before he got the ball. I personally, if that happened, if we was 1-0 down again, in that game and we didn't get that given, I'd have been a little bit frustrated. But yeah, like I said, I think Joe Worrell will be a good signing for us. He's the kind of player that we've been wanting a little bit. Like I said, technically he's not amazing, lacks a little bit of pace, but he's somebody who'll throw his head in where it hurts, and we've missed that type of defender really. I don't think he's as good as O'Shea. And I can see why he's not quite made it in the Premier League. But if you look at selling O'Shea for 15 million and maybe getting Worrell for about half that price, it's pretty good business, isn't it, in the end? So I'm more than happy for him to be partnered with Esteve. And when you watch Esteve play, we've done really well to keep hold of him. He is a class act. You look at him and Worrell and Esteve is, in my opinion, looking at some of the players who have gone and got Premier League moves, I think he's one who I'm surprised he's not gone, because he's a top flight footballer for me. I think he's excellent, and to have them two centre half, it looks a really good partnership. It's just fullback areas worry me a little bit.
Yeah, Perez definitely worries me as well. Do you think when all of our centre halves are fit, Rich, do you think?
Say that again, sorry, Natalie.
When all of our
plating some mints up, I didn't hear you then.
Yeah, Kira, shut up. Don't stop making tea. We're trying to record a podcast here, and if you're going to make tea, send it over here, please. I'll have a portion of whatever you're having.
We're so professional, aren't we?
We also listen. And long may the chaos of the None and Never podcast.
What are you having there, Kira? A bit of pasta and mince, are you? Is that what you're having over there? Lovely, that, isn't it? Oh, George's speciality.
We can't do that. Not live. We'll do that maybe as an outtake. We can't throw young Georgie boy under a bus. We will not tell our listeners what George was doing with his Saturday instead of watching Leeds United, but it may have involved a pasta making course and wine. We would not dare to just grass on Georgie boy listeners. We wouldn't do that here. We're team players. I've completely forgot what we were talking about. What were we talking about? Yes, centre halves. So when all of our centre halves are fit again, is Worrell a first choice for you, or does he fall down?
Listen, if Bayer's fully fit, Bayer's a better player than Worrell, isn't he?
Bayer and Esteve would be amazing.
Yeah, but ultimately, Worrell's probably better for that type of game against Leeds when you're defending your box a little bit. So it's kind of like a horses for courses, isn't it? And and sometimes some players are better for the job than others. I just mentioning to Bayer, I really hope he gets back fit soon. I think with Bayer, he seems a really good. We don't know him, do we? But he seems a really good lad and a really nice lad. So I hope he's back to fitness soon. I personally really like Ekdal as well. I think Ekdal is a terrific centre half.
Me too.
Again, similar to Worrell, he lacks a little bit of pace, but he's a little bit better on the ball than Worrell. But again, it's good competition for places. But ultimately, you need to get the lads fit and on the par, don't you? So I'm absolutely more than happy with Worrell and Esteve playing for now. I think Humphries will be a really good centre half too. He's obviously not a full back, you can tell that, but I think he'll be a really good centre half in time too.
Yeah, we'll come on to Humphries in a minute, so I want to have a quick look at that red card. The one thing I would say about Bayer, and I think we've probably forgotten about this because it's been a while since we saw him, I've missed the Bayer play out from the back, and it wasn't just as just everybody's playing out the back. Now there was a directness and there was that run that Bayer does down the middle. And I think even playing a more conservative style of football that isn't a high press or isn't just, Muric to Bayer to, whoever up top. I think when Bayer is fit again, I think you'll see a little bit more creativity coming from the back, because you've got those players, you've got Esteve and you've got your fullbacks that maybe aren't as confident as going forward. We're not playing that system anymore. But Bayer, particularly against the weaker sides at home, will have that freedom to take the ball from Trafford and just go, send it to Cohen, send it to Koleosho. And I think that's going to create us a lot more chances. So I think we will see that. And I think we'll realise we missed that a little bit when Bayer does come back into the fold. Thomas, sticking with defence, one gentleman who absolutely deserves all of the credit that he got after the game was the brilliant James Trafford, who, my goodness, put in an incredible performance at Leeds. Two things very much stuck out for me. Number one, his positioning, I thought was much more improved. Rich, before you have a go at me for this, I am not a goalkeeping coach, and nor am I as technically minded as you. But it seemed to me that his positioning was a lot stronger. And secondly, his confidence coming out for crosses, collecting the ball, going for it. He wasn't flapping, he wasn't punching, he knew where he was going to go, and he committed to every move that he made. And I thought that was perhaps the best performance that we've seen from James Trafford since we've had him. Do you think that's a little bit hyperbole, or do you think that's sensible? That's on you, Tom. There we are.
No, I think that's fair enough. I think it obviously had a difficult first season. I think when you talk about his positioning, I don't think it was his major flaw last season. I think the biggest issues we had with him was the way he handled his area and his kicking. And I think we look like we've addressed both those problems. Obviously, he's not been asked to play suicidal balls into the feet of someone who's got two players marking him on the edge of his own box this season. That stops, and those mistakes will stop when you stop doing stupid things like that. It was a bit concerning at the start of the second half in that game to watch the centre halves taking short goal kicks to him in their own 6-yard box and let three men come onto them. But thankfully, we stopped doing that as the game went on. But the big thing for me that really stood out was like you say, the way that he dealt with balls in the box coming out. He looked so much more confident. There was a last minute, the big moment. I think it was the 98th minute. Ball swung into the box. I think I certainly was. I think probably everyone in the way was having flashbacks to that Luton game where he comes out. Obviously, it's a foul, but he still. I think it's probably fair to say he makes a bit of a meal of it, or certainly is looking for the foul as opposed to looking to come and clear everyone out in your way, which I think is what you should be doing. But that's what we got from him for this one. It was come out, take it, and you see the photo of him actually grabbing the ball. He's got a man either side of him, a Burnley man and a Leeds man. It's a big crunching challenge, but he looked every inch of his 6'6" there,
so
and he really didn't look like that last season. Yeah, it was. And I think confidence is a big word. I think the amount of times you saw him just with a little smile on his face, whether he's just taking that extra second with the goal kick and just wasting a little bit of time with the ball in his bread basket. And at the end, he looked like a really happy man. And I think, as you say, I think confidence is the word. I think he's turned a corner now in terms of his performances for the club. I think he's turned a corner with the fans. It's really good to see. And I think if you carry on playing like this, then we're seeing the keeper that we paid all that money for, and we're seeing a keeper that we probably can make money on and make a profit on. If not, keep him at the club for a good few years longer. Fantastic display. I kind of glossed over the saves he made in the first half because that wasn't, as I say, I don't think that was his major issue last season. But as you said, did really well in terms of for the first one. Just narrowed the angle, made the Leeds player fluff his chance, and then the save from Nonce is a really good one as well. And he makes it look easy because he's positioned himself well, as you say. And even in the second half, a couple you'd expect him to save them, but the ones that he stretches for, tips over the bar, tips around the post, it just contributed to the comfortable kind of feeling we had. We remember a few years ago when it was Tarkowski, me, and Nick Pope, and we would restrict teams to shoot from outside the box because we knew that Nick Pope could get everything, and it had that same kind of feeling. I agree with Richard what he said earlier that in the second half, you never really felt that Leeds were going to score with what they were doing and what we were restricting them to, and Trafford was a big part of that. So long may that continue.
I think we can get back to that this season, Tom, and I know I'm showing some slight bias here, but a half a season with a holy trinity of Trafford, Esteve and Jordan Bayer, that is an incredible spine of your defence for the Championship. That is a three-party defence that could comfortably survive in the Premier League, I think. And we could get that this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a bit more of a realistic defensive setup. I think I agree with what Rich was saying earlier about it kind of mirrors what we used to be in the Premier League, and we know that if we go back up, and I'm saying if still, of course, We're not going to be able to play with like 3 young lads at centre half and nets at full back that are just getting bullied and outfought by Premier League teams. We're not good enough to cope with that. What we're going to need is a solid base. We're going to need to be able to dig in and grind points out, which we obviously weren't capable of doing last season. And I think not just with the defenders and the way we're set up, but the signings that we're making as well. I think you can see that we're kind of trending in that direction. There's no chance company would have signed Joe Worrell, I don't think, because he's got no resale value and he's not a Belgian 20-year-old. But as Richard said, he gives us something different. He gives us something that we need in that back line. The same with Laurent in midfield. We were talking earlier about how we struggled to keep the ball at times, and I don't think he's the best player with the ball at his feet, Laurent. But what he does give us is a real physical presence in the midfield. We had that last season with Burge. Obviously, he's left, and we needed to replace it, and we have done. I think, just as Rich said, that Warren was the kind of player you want to be playing at Elland Road when you're trying to grind out a 1-0. Laurent was the kind of player you want in your midfield. He was just going to sit in there, win tackles, break up play, shield the back four. He did that job superbly on Saturday. It's just a bit of a mentality shift, as we say. I think a lot of people were very, didn't like watching the football we played under Dyche, where it was very kind of attritional. The football we played under company in this league was fantastic, but we struggled to translate it into the Premier League. And what we kind of seem to be, obviously it's very early days, it's difficult to judge just yet, but what we seem to be kind of trying to work for is something that's in between that. Obviously a solid defence is always going to be part of that. So hopefully we will see that. And while we might not be going everywhere away and winning 4 or 5-0 and putting teams to the sword, we know that if we're 1-0 up away from home, we can set up solidly, defend the points and come away with the points that we need, which is something that, as I say, that I don't really think we had a lot of last season.
Excellent. Rich, let's circle back then to the point that you made earlier on in the podcast, in which we'll end this. Not an awful lot in terms of technical or incidents to talk about from a second half display from Burnley, but what we absolutely did see is a little bit of Burnley's old DNA restored to this team. We saw a defensive resilience and we saw a determination to do what was necessary to get the points, either not lose the game, so come away with at least a point, but also to protect the lead that we had. And it's been quite a long time since Burnley got their noses 1-0 in front and so out of game to get those 3 points. How pleasing was that to you to see a little bit of the old Burnley back? Because I know that's something that you like. Yeah,
it's massively, massively pleasing. You're not always going to win. Like Tom said, 3-4-0 and play the most attractive football. I think Leeds only lost 2 games at home last season. They might, they're not going to lose too many more this season. And I think I said before we actually started recording the podcast, defending is a mindset. It's about how much are you willing to work hard without the ball, knowing that it's not going to be easy, knowing that it's going to be tough, for the remainder of the game, say with half an hour to go. And one thing I loved was how many players we were getting behind the ball, wanting to win that ball. We were doing, when Leeds had it on the edge of the box, like Nonto or Solomon, etc. There was 2 or 3 players around them, really making it difficult. And we were all working hard for each other. If somebody did give the ball away, there was no moaning. We was all getting back quickly. And it was just really, really good to see that, to have that attitude back in the team. And I think, listen, Brownell has his criticism at times, but, Brownell epitomised the effort when he went. Pardon?
I love Brownell.
Yeah, but he still gets stick, doesn't he? At times, Brownell. I think Brownell gets quite a lot of undeserved stick on Twitter about maybe his technical ability and stuff. But I think Brownell epitomised the effort going in for that 50-50. Knew he was going to get his egg clattered. And I think Tom said that, he is one of the players who should be willing to take a knock, and being the captain and stuff. So,
Sacramento can't be taken.
Sacramento's got too nice hair for that. He did back out of a 50-50, which I weren't happy with.
His eyebrows are too nice. We can't be putting any stitches in those. He's worked hard on those.
Yeah, but it's just like I said, that is just a mentality. It's a willingness to work hard for each other, to dig deep when it's not pretty. And like I said, that feeling at fault, sometimes we can have an argument about entertainment and all this. But for me, that feeling at full time, when you've been grafting, when you've been winning for a while, when you've been under the cosh a little bit to actually get those three points, I don't think there's many better feelings than that. You know, all Saturday afternoon, I was absolutely buzzing, you know, after we held out for that win. You know, sometimes to me, I enjoy those wins more than the really pleasing on the eye 4-5-0. I got more satisfaction from that win than I did when we beat Cardiff 5-0. I know it's Leeds away and the opposition is different. But like you said, Natalie, it felt like we had a little bit of the old Burnley back, which we've all been missing. So yeah, it was just absolutely brilliant to see that spirit come back in the team.
Yeah, definitely. I think where I sit with that is I'd like to see a balance this season. I don't want to see the absolute just rice paper team that we had last season that had no backbone, no fight, no anything about them, no personality, no connection, and none of them really wanted to be here. But then I also don't want to go back to having that performances that we had under Dyche towards the end every game either. And I think that distinction that you've made then, Rich, is a really important one. It's the ones where you've earned the points. So we were facing a very strong side at their own ground. We're away from home. We're trying to play, we're not favourites for the league anymore. They are. And you are the underdog in generic terms for those. And where you have earned the right to get your nose in front, it wasn't a smash and grab. We played just as well in that first half. And actually, a lot of the media outlets are suggesting that whilst they had more possession and they had more volume of chances, actually the quality of chances that we created were far better than theirs were. When you have genuinely earned that, then that's so pleasing. So what I don't want to see is us, at home to Portsmouth, for example, just playing that same style of football. I think
it's going to be different games at homes.
Yeah, of course.
Our challenges, and it's hard for a lot of teams, is when, Portsmouth, I don't know too much about Portsmouth, obviously coming up from League One. I may be completely wrong about this, but I imagine Portsmouth will play similar to how we set up against Leeds, and will play deeper and will look to counter-attack us. So we've seen against
Blackburn played against us.
Yeah, we've seen against Blackburn, we did struggle to break them down. So I think that's, our two best performances this season, our best wins. Cardiff was just a weird game, really, wasn't it? It was kind of like a 5-0, but it was a strange 5-0. They had chances and we kind of just put pretty much every shot we had on target in. So like our two best results have been away from home against what you would consider as opposition who'll probably be fighting for promotion, where we've been able to sit back in it and with our pace. And then, like I said, the home game against Blackburn, where especially second half, they did set up camp a little bit.
A little bit.
Not fair play to Blackburn. They were down to 10 men. I thought Blackburn did really well in that game. Actually, not a lot of listeners will like me giving credit to Blackburn, but fair play to them.
You won't hear it because I'm going to cut it out of the podcast.
But that's going to be a bit of our challenge, isn't it? Like second half, if there's half an hour to go and we're losing 1-1, we're losing 1-1 and we're drawing 1-1. Have we got enough creativity, to actually break teams down? But to be honest, it took a while under company to get that, Natalie.
It did. Yeah, it did. You're right. And we're ahead of where we were under company right now, aren't we?
Yeah. But the thing is, because we've come down from the Premier League, we don't have a divine right to be beating teams 3-4, 5-0 every game.
That's
we can't be spoiled. This is Burnley Football Club. We're not Man City. We have lost players this summer. It's going to take time. I can't remember the guy's name, but I've seen some guy tweeting today being a little bit negative because we're like second in the amount of like possession retention or second bottom in some stat to do with possession. And it's like, it's a new team. Get behind the team. I think the majority of fans are, but I think sometimes we don't want to be that set of entitled fans because we've had some success in the past. This is a completely new season with a new team. And we're not always going to be beating teams comfortably. So we've got to have a bit of patience. We've got to have a bit of realisation of that you've got to really work hard in a football match in the Championship to beat these teams. And there was a lot of games, Natalie, in the Championship at home where we only won by 1 goal under company as well. Don't get me wrong, there was games where we batted.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah.
But there was, Coventry at home comes to mind. We drew 0-0 against Sunderland. At home, we drew 1-1 to Hull. We drew 1-1 to Stoke. So they're just the ones I'm thinking off the top of my mind. So, I think there's that even though it was amazing at times under company, there's that misconception that we battered teams every single game, and we didn't. And ultimately, it is going to be a slightly different team this season. We look at so let's see what happens. There's 5 games in, and like you said, you can only probably count 2 of them as properly Parker's team. So it's way too early to judge one way or the other.
Definitely. Very wise words from our Rational Rich. I'm going to start calling you. I've got a friend called Rational Rich. I'm going to steal his name and call it to you. Before we leave then, Tom, let's leave on a slightly funny note. We have found a couple of heroes amongst our crowd. And I think this is kind of a twofold thing. I think we're all loving the connection back with this side again, and with the what the manager's doing to bring everybody back. We've got player chants, we've got players who are doing things in the community, and it just feels like we're a little bit more together than they are. And very few things will get fans on your side more than taunting the opposition. A couple of our players, Hannibal taunting the Leeds fans as he got subbed off was a joy to watch. And then was it Sarmiento who put on his? Is that how you pronounce it? Sarmiento. I probably should learn his name if I'm going to fangirl over him more than much. Is it? I don't know how you pronounce it, but whatever it's called. Put in his Instagram post, put in L in the Elland Road, which is, of course, the title of this week's podcast. Heroes, one and all, Tom. It's very nice to see some players with a little bit of personality and to understand what these things mean to fans enough to embrace that side of their laughing, I think.
Yeah, all good fun. I like the TikTok that we put out as well with the Joy Division love will tear us apart again, playing over the Collio show goal. A nice little wink as well. The only thing that worried me about Hannibal was when he came off. Obviously, he got his customary yellow card. He was getting dogs abuse from the Leeds fans, so I don't blame him for giving a bit back. But he came over and started celebrating with the away end, and there was still like 20 minutes to go. And I was just thinking, no, man, it's too early. You know what's going to happen now. You've done that.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, no, of course.
What are you going to get back when we lose 2-1 here now? So it did worry me a bit. I prefer if he kept the taunting and the celebrating to when we've actually won the game. But he's great fun, isn't he? I think he's the sort of an Ashley Barnes type character, which we haven't really replaced. It wasn't really something the company was desperate to get in the dressing room, I don't think. And we're going to see. I'll be gobsmacked if he doesn't get at least 2 red cards between now and the end of the season. But I think we're also going to get a lot of fun with him, a lot of laughs. He's been catapulted into 2 of the biggest games of the season as well. Obviously, the East Lancs derby, and then probably the most difficult away game of the season. So perhaps we'll see a slightly more calm, measured side to him, with a slightly less high-profile game coming up on Saturday. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing him. It's that bit of X factor, it's something to enjoy other than just brilliant football screamers. You don't get that every week. So as we've been talking about the kind of changing personalities in the side, and the fact that we've got lads who like to dig in and have a bit of a scrap now, and he's certainly kind of epitomising that. So one of those players, I think, you hate him when he's playing against your team, but you love a bit of it when it's on your side. So yeah, that was very, very good fun to see from the away end on Saturday.
It feels like we've got a personality back. It feels like we've got something about us. It feels like the VK years were everything was technically perfect, and the attitude was got to be perfect. It's all about win, 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 and it's all about this journey. And actually, we had that disconnect, and we had the players who coming in as a stepping stone, and they were just being a churn to the door. It now feels like we've got just something about us again, and that's really nice.
It felt like, if this is the right word, computerized. I don't even know if that's a word.
Yes, it did.
It felt like they were like,
right.
Rather than being players and personalities, it felt like they were just
like FIFA.
Like FIFA a little bit. It's an hard one with company in here, and I know we'll go back to it because it's hard to kind of call it, and I've called it last season. That first season was amazing, but the second season was equally as bad. But yeah, there seems like now we're, like you said, Hannibal. There seems like there's actual proper characters again, and people who you can actually like get behind and like, and it's not as robotic. And ultimately, that's what football's about, isn't it? Like something that's been found. I don't know if you followed it a lot or not, Natalie. I know Tom has, and like how the Barclaysman trend has been going on Twitter. showing like goals from the past and different things like from like the mid
I've not seen
2000s.
that. Will you
It's
send me
been
the
all
link?
over Twitter and like the early 2010s. And
Tag me in one.
football back then was kind of like, wasn't as tactical. It was a little bit more off the cuff, people scoring like individual goals and long range screamers. And, and it's kind of like recently football's been a little bit boring, hasn't it? Like I said, it has been robust. It's been VAR, it's been XG, it's been percentages of stat rate, pass rates, and all that stuff, inverted fullbacks, all that stuff. Where like what I felt about Saturday's game was it was just a good old fashioned championship game of football, wasn't it? A good old fashioned game of football.
Both sides, yeah.
Both teams there was nothing in the teams for me. Us and Leeds will be right up there next season with this season with like Sheffield, etc. And it just felt like a really good proper game of football. Yeah, there was obviously tactics involved, but it felt like both teams were having a bit of a go, little bit of scrapping going on here and there, some full-blooded challenges, similar to the Blackburn game, really. And it's been refreshing, to be honest, hasn't it? Like you said, I think sometimes the Premier League in one way it's amazing to watch. The standard at times is fantastic, but it feels like it's very diluted as a product. Like you go back to the Championship and it just seems a little bit more raw, a little bit more what football's about. And like I said, and I think you look at the Burnley team now, it feels like we have got some of that characters in. I just put in a comment there, like I don't think Hannibal's just a shit house, if I'm allowed to say that. I just think he's a complete and utter nutcase. He is
nearly got to the end of the
nearly, but he is.
46 minutes tried to use the bleeper.
No one minds a bit of shit today. That's fine. No one's offended by that. It's after the watershed, isn't it?
I've got a flag on YouTube if there's a swear word in here. We'll get them.
Tell them to take it down. They can put the flag down. But,
it's all right. It's all right. We'll do that.
Listen, but like you said, he's just mad, isn't he? What was he doing? Going like Tom said, with 20 minutes to go. Oh God, if they scored 2 now.
I know. Can you imagine?
Jesus.
I also kind of feel like Scott Parker must just be like, I really don't know what to do with you right now, so I'm going to let you go, and we'll
let him go.
Later on. Yeah,
just let him go.
Be himself.
Do you know what though? With Hannibal, he will get sent off this season.
Yeah, he will.
And with players like that, especially as a young lad, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. With him, a bit like, obviously not comparing ability, but a bit like Rooney when he was younger. He's a young lad who's a bit mad. He plays on the edge, and that's what you love about him. But at times he's going to do stuff that's a little bit daft. And like you said, God Almighty, he's one who you hate playing against, but you want players like that in your team, don't you? So I think we need to find the correct position for him, because actually, away from all the antics, I think actually, within the games, I don't think he's impacted the games too much yet. Actually, like on the ball.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
I still think we're yet to see the best of him. One player we've not mentioned, he kind of went under the radar. I really like Jadon Anthony. I think he looks a real smooth player. Real classy player. I really like him. But like I said, I think if this is my last word on the podcast, from where we was, kind of just after that Sunderland game, in and around that, where all hell broke loose, and maybe there's a couple of overreactions at time, but I think it's just because we were all genuinely worried, and the way we approached that transfer window wasn't right, still, in my opinion, and put that to bed for now, but hopefully learn lessons in the future. I think to where we are now, only a few weeks later, I think there's definitely a lot more positivity, and I think we've built a team now which I feel Burnley can get behind, and I think they'll fight for the badge. Yeah, and ultimately, that's what you want as a fan, isn't it? In my opinion, you're not always going to win batter teams as a Burnley fan, but if you can leave Turf Moor or away games and go, do you know what? The lads have given 100% effort. I can kind of live with that, if I'm being honest. Other people might not, but I can.
Yeah, love it. Okay, let's finish off there. One word from you both. Tom, where do we finish?
I'm still saying second.
Yep. Rich? First. I vote first too. I think we're going to win it. There you go. Listeners, before you leave, we want you to do 2 things. Number 1, drop a comment in the comment section of this video. Let us know where you think the Clarets will stay and what you've made so far of Scott Parker's new look Burnley side. If you listen to this on the podcast, do hit that subscribe button and you can pass your comments via our social media channels. That is all we've got time for from the analysis show, but myself and Dave will be back this weekend with a preview show, looking ahead to that home tie against Portsmouth this weekend. And we'll be back next week with the analysis show. So please do turn on those notifications so you do not miss an episode of your favourite Clarets podcast. So my thanks go to Rich and Tom for their contribution to this episode and for everybody who's made this possible this week. I've been Natalie Bromley, and this has been the Nona Never podcast. Until next time.
The Nona Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The analysis show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby, and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonanever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.